Hey there, welcome back to the table. So I think the most brilliant aspect to the design of this game so far is the game is like beating me up and I'm starting to feel depressed. And then they give you 2 domestic actions or 4 military or diplomatic actions. It's like the designers know you're at a spot where your life sucks. So we're going to give you a chance to turn it around. And then, obviously your dice rolls stink and then you end up doing nothing. But I do like that. I mean, it's like they timed it just right. Things are going horribly. But you know what? Why don't you take a few actions and feel better? It's like the designer's giving you a cookie. So one of the things that there was a comment, I made a mistake. Big surprise, right? The mistake I made is there's a spot where it says that I could spend 1 AP to improve my chances, my DRM by 1. But I can improve my DRM by up to 2 if I spend 2 AP. Give me a second. Let me find it. It might have been on the action chart. Yes, that's where it was. So let's see. We did the diplomatic ones first. It was this one. 1 action, and you can spend up to 2 AP for each step below for -1 DRM per AP. So I would have to spend 2 to do -1. And I only spent, so what I ended up doing is I spent 2 to just do a -1. I think it was down here or whatever. So anyways, I get 1 AP point back. So I'm up to 19. And let's keep going. So we are now in this phase, which we should be familiar with. We have to draw a chit. So we're in activation phase 2, and when you're looking at your book here, so we are in right here. So activation phase 2 and 4. So we're going to have to flip back in the book when we go to activation phase 3, and phase 3 is going to be more of the same. So throughout the course of the year, we're basically going to do everything we did in activation phase 1, we're going to do again in phase 3. And then what we're going to do here in phase 2, we're going to do again in phase 4. So it's not like I have 3 more sections of rules to learn. I actually did do 1/2 of all the actions. It's just that we're going to have to do them again. And but anyways, let's start. And a lot of these are going to be familiar. Like we're familiar with this next one, which is draw a crisis chit. And I do feel bad for the developer because he's replaced, this is the same text over and over again in the flip book. At the same time, it needs to stay because otherwise that's yet another chart I have to go look up. And in some respects, I'm just glad that the flip book has everything here. So anyways, let's go ahead and grab our crisis. And let's draw one. And the one I drew, and of course, we're on a section where the plus signs matter. We got a cascading event 3. So that dang Iran thing is happening again. Come on. All right. So cascading event 3. Unless otherwise directed by the card. If there were no cards, treat it as you drawn a 2. And I was curious because there was a chance that we didn't have a card in the 3. We do have a card in the 3 though. So Iran is just making our lives miserable. I'm going to declare war on Iran. Let's screw it. I think that Middle East, Southwestern Asia needs a new parking lot. I really do. Iran looks like a great place for one. We can make a mall. All right, here we go. if the U.S. relationship with GSSA is very close, it is not. We're just close. If there's less than 3 tensions on Iran, ignore the remainder of this card and discard. Of course not. There's a million tension markers on it. Otherwise, Iran mines the Straits of Hormuz and closes the Persian Gulf to enable traffic. -1 to the state of the economy in U.S., China, and or Eurozone. So basically, what is -1? That means it drops by 1? Or I would think that it would just mean that does it drop by a whole 1? Or I think -1 just means I put a improving or non-improving marker. Why am I having? It's because I've been playing all day. I'm tired. I really should quit. Okay. There is a big red box in the governing manual that tells you exactly what happens. So normally, yes, you have the elasticity, but it says that if it says -1, then you literally do -1. So this is all 4 markets: U.S., China, and Eurozone. Oh, not Russia. Interesting. So, our economy drops by a whole but the improving stays. And then China also drops by 1, but the improving stays. And then same with the EU. But we're not done. They're destroying us here. Iran is being a lot. -4 public approval. 1, 2, 3, 4. Plus 2 tension counters on Iran and Saudi Arabia. So Iran gets 2 more, and Saudi Arabia gets 2 more, which they have a million. Right now, I should probably start removing those. Okay. Increase U.S.-Iran conflict track by 2 boxes. So this goes to 2 boxes. We're almost at war with Iran. And -1 to Middle East stability. Place the card back in the 2 pile. Oh, you jerk. So -1 to stability. It's at the bottom. I don't think what happens. And then it goes back in the 2 box. So what happens to stability if it's already low as it could go? Let me check. It's not in the index. Regional stability, page 29. If it's stability 7 or 8, 1 max civil war counter, 3 max terror groups. It doesn't say. It doesn't say 1 bit. So I'm assuming that if it can't go down any lower, it just doesn't go anywhere. I mean, it is saying that during the end of the year, things are going to happen, which I am glad I read that because I wasn't sure. But There is another section on tracks, so I'm going to go look on that. There's trending tracks and tracks. Yeah, I don't think it matters. So we just don't do anything. Stability is as low as it can go. All right, that was one crisis. We has a plus on it, so guess what? We get to draw another crisis. Draw crisis cards. I think that means we get to draw 2 of them. And this goes here. Yeah, there is no plus sign on it, so we're not going to get another one. But I believe that means we're drawing 2. Draw 1 or more crisis cards. Yeah, we're going to do 2 of them. So let me reach across the table here and not step on my dog. That would be a disaster. Another crisis. Here's our 2 cards. One at a time, one at a time. Let's go with the first one here. Terror cells on the move. Immediate. If there is currently a 3 or 4 terror group or any rogue state on the map. All right. So there is not a 3 or 4 terror group. Is there a rogue state, though? We have unstable states. We have civil wars. What even causes a rogue state? I don't think we do have a rogue state. I'm looking. No rogue states. I mean, the Taliban is technically one, but we're at war with it. There's a lot of civil wars. There's some terror groups, but no rogue states. We got these unstable states. That's not the same. And just in case you're wondering, these are the rogue states here. See, rogue state level 1, level 2. None of those are on the board at this time. So, none of this is true. Place 1 in the Eurozone, a level 1 terror group. Then roll 2 d10s to identify 2 random regions. Place the other 2 in those random regions. But see, all this is only if that's true. None of that's true. If no such terror group or rogue state, reduce by 1 box the targeting level of 2 terror groups currently on intel tracks. I only have 1 on an intel track. Or no, I have 2. If there's more than 2 possibilities, 1 per region in a certain order. There's only 2. And here I can show you. This one's going to get reduced, and this one gets reduced. Okay, that I can live with. That's not, I mean, it reverses things, but, and then right here it shows that it goes into the reshuffle pile. So, this one is done. As far as crises go, that could have been a lot worse. Let's do the next one. Is there one that just says, you're awesome? Let's give you glamour and fame. Supreme Court rules extraordinary rendition illegal. Frees Guantanamo prisoners. Increase 1 level 3, 2 or 1 terror group in that priority in each of 3 regions. The Middle East, Africa, and Central South Asia by 1 level each. All right, so Middle East first. We're going to have to do a 3. So one of those 2s becomes a 3. Then it says Africa, which is down here. And I'm just realizing China has 3 influence on the board. Russia has 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 influence on the board. Okay, yeah, we got it all correct. All right, this one becomes a 3. then Central, South Asia. There's a 2 here that's going to become a 3. Then roll a d10. I rolled a 1. +1 public approval. Draw and place a UN Goodwill counter in the earned UN Goodwill box. All right, I'm not looking at it. We now have 2 in the box. And then see here, this is the media slant. I did just read in the rules that so this is, the media is going to either approve or disapprove and go up or down. I just don't remember how I resolved that. Media slant, page 26. Certain cards have that on it. When you draw a media slant card, after performing whatever actions to discover the effect of the media, check your media relations and apply additional media public approval benefit as listed on box representing your current media relations. If it's 8, you get +2, 6 or 7, you get +1, 5, no change, etc., etc. So I think it's just right here. So we're currently on 4, which is -1 public approval. Media jerks. So there goes our public approval right back down. And this says that it's discarded. So I'm going to go ahead and add this to the pile of cards that are no longer in the game. All right, that was that. We are done with our chit drawing. We're done with all of our chit, our bullshit. Then we go to any 3 actions. And then there's a core support check. I don't know what that means, but we'll do any 3 actions first. I think action 1. So yeah, let's do this first. Action 1, I absolutely want to do a domestic, or I keep wanting to say, a diplomatic action. We got to get Israel back. So currently Israel is not very close. So let's change that. Or was it Israel? No, they're very close. Which one did I lose? Oh, the NATO. We want to get the NATO back. So where the heck is that? Was that a presidential action? Yeah, it is. But this one says any 3 actions. That includes presidential. So we're going to do presidential. We're going to invite them to the White House to improve relations. We're going to do the AP costs because this is important. So we're going to drop to 18. We need NATO back. Choose an ally that's not very close. Roll a d10. We spent 1, so we're going to get a -1. We don't have that attribute, and they're not estranged. So let's go for it. I rolled a 7, which is no change to the relationship, but I get to add 1 or -1, and holy crap, did that work out. So we get to do very close on NATO. And I would have gotten to remove attention, but there is one. So I'm going to do the same action again, but this time with Saudi Arabia. So I'm also going to spend an AP. I know I'm spending them like candy, but I need to. And then there's an 8. So I'm going to spend an AP to roll again. This is important. There's the 2 I was looking for. I don't get a bonus for rolling really low. But Saudi Arabia is now very close. and I get to remove one of those tension markers. And I know I'm spending a lot, but you just saw the card that keeps recurring over and over again. It's burning us. So I need the joint actions. Those joint actions are crucial. In fact, I want to get everybody very close so I can get joint actions with all of them. Okay, I don't want to do any more presidential ones. This time I'm moving to the diplomatic. I want to do reduced tensions in Saudi Arabia. So it's one action. I am not spending to reduce my die roll. Actually, I could. It says I could spend up to 2. If I get a 1 to a 3, it's a major success. I remove 2 tensions. A 4 to a 7 removes 1. And then, of course, a 10 is horrible. I have to add for every influence token in the region. So Russia has 1. So I'm only adding 1. The Iranian influence doesn't matter for this. So Russia adds 1. My diplomatic rating of my Secretary of State subtracts 1. And this is the one I'm looking at. So these cancel out. I could spend, and that would benefit me. So I could actually reduce my die roll by 2. Otherwise, I'm living with whatever I roll. Here's my thoughts. I don't want to spend 2 AP. Let's just roll and see what happens. If I do roll badly, then I'll spend an AP to roll again. So then, I'm only spending an AP if I have to. So I roll a 6, which I think is good enough. It is. I could remove 1 tension. They have 1 million, as you can see. But let's get rid of 1. And get that number down. All right, those are my 3 actions. I felt like I didn't do much, but I actually did a lot. So then we got terror or chaos. All right, 1 to 5 or 6 to 10. I wonder, hold on. I rolled a 9, so it's chaos. And I'm sure there's a token for this. Sorry, I just punched a bunch of stuff. I'm actually getting tired of having punch boards with only a few things left on them. So I really should just punch them all completely and be done with it. I'm starting to feel a lot more comfortable with all these tokens. At first I was very overwhelmed. What the heck? It says terror or chaos. I guess maybe there's no token? So you could basically have terror or terror both times? I guess so. All right, so it's telling us to go to WT1 or WT2. So I'm assuming that is a world chart. So here we go. WT2, we're doing Chaos X, 20. Where's the page numbers? There we go. Hold on, we're not here yet. We got to do core support first. And actually, this tells us what to do, but core support. I'm going to keep my roll. We're doing chaos. Adjust your public approval rating according to your core support number on your party relations track. Move your PA rating up or down based on the number of boxes. So that's this here. Okay, so that's not points, but that's still good. I'm at the 4, so I'm really glad I did that. So I get to move public approval up by 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. We're back up to 50. Just made that. I'm glad we didn't skip. Okay, now I'm here. So there's a terror acts table. We're going to do chaos, of course. which is this side. Increase the conflict status track for a random conflict by 1 box. If that causes war, then set up the war. All right, so let's roll for the random box. So I rolled a 7. I have no idea what that is, but they have the markers over here. Just trying to find a spot for the camera. So a 7 is Israel, Iran, so that one moves up to 3. I am fully ready to support Israel in their war with Iran at this point. Okay, then roll another d10. So let's roll. I rolled a 9, and it says domestic chaos. Increase domestic crisis by 1 box, then roll a d6. So domestic crisis for us is actually going up pretty high. We're at a 2 now. So we're going to roll a d6. I rolled a 3. Cabinet issues. -1 public approval. So now we're down to 48. Add a worsening counter to effectiveness. Then roll once on the cabinet drama table and apply results. Jerk. So effectiveness is going down, and the cabinet drama table is up here. So I'm going to roll a d6. I roll a 5. Oh. I have to roll again. A 1. The Secretary of State resigns. Oh man, this was a good one. So, draw 3 new candidate counters and select a replacement. Place worsening marker on cabinet effectiveness. -2 public approval, -1 party relations. Oh, you jerk. So the party relations is dropping there. And then I think it means that my cabinet just went down because I got 2 worsenings. So I'm back to where I started. I was so happy I was able to improve that. And then this was an awesome one. Secretary of State with the +1 action. One, 2, 3. And then I'm putting this one back in the cup. All right, here's the good news. I at least have somebody with a 1 where it needs to be. And holy crap. Okay, so I lost my bonus action, but I at least have a 1. I'm not a fan of that. In fact, I might have rather had the person who just has the bonus action and screw the extra 1 bonus. Okay, that wasn't cool. I don't like chaos. All right, and then we roll for International Chaos Table. So I rolled a 9. China expands island building in South China Sea. Increase regional crisis by 2 boxes in Asia Pacific and place a China influence counter there. So here's the Asia Pacific. Crisis goes up by 2 and they get a influence. Man, this game just... I know in one of my earlier videos I said this was like unconditional surrender on steroids. I meant to say cruel necessity on steroids. And I don't know why I confused the 2 names, but Cruel Necessity is the game that I think of when I play this. Okay. We are done. That was not a fun thing to go through. Now an ally rogue group acts and the UN acts. The UN acting is actually probably going to be pretty cool. So this should be just like before. We're going to flip over one of the ally rogue things, and most of it's going to be good. Yeah, it's really literally telling us to do exactly that, and then we will do the UN actions in a second. Okay, so remember we shuffled these up, so this actually should go here. Now we're going to draw this one, which is D, and put that here. All right, so let's do group D. I sort of like this part of the game, where they get to do things. And I think it's because I like the idea of having other countries like do stuff that helps, you know, because like we're getting along. That's why I don't like Iran right now. I'm sure if I went there, I would meet some really awesome people. But right now in this game, you're pissing me off, Iran. All right, here we go. Number 11. Canada, Gulf States, Saudi Arabia, and Rogue. They act only in their region, except for Canada, who can affect Eurozone or Central South America. Activate Canada. We are very close, so we get 2 joint actions. Yes. So we're going to perform a number. There is no plus or minus 1. So here's our possible joint actions. Here, and then there's more over here. So Intel, locate terror groups. Make 1 SOF raid against the terror group. Now, there are terror groups in Central and South, so they could probably help us there. Stabilize region. On a 1 to 4, increase stability by 1 box. But we need the crisis to be 0 to get a plus or a minus 1 to our die, which makes it a 50%. If the ally is involved in a war, okay, the ally, Canada is not in a war. De-escalate. If ally has a conflict track. I don't think Canada has a conflict track. Who wants to go to war with Canada? Only Americans want to go to war with Canada. Oh, no. The internationally non-recognized country of Quebec wants to go to war with Canada. That's the one that wants to go to war with Canada. Okay. Request humanitarian aid in any region. This is the one I think we like to use. Make a UN aid roll for any one region in the map. Roll a d10 to decrease regional crisis by 1. Or remove stress from this ally. Canada has no stress, so we're good there. I think I want to do humanitarian. I don't know if can I remove domestic crisis levels. This says regional crisis levels, so that's not the same. We should, we're gonna first of all we're gonna try to remove the one in the EU, and then we're gonna try to remove the one in South America to get them both down to 0. So let's do the EU first. So that one is a 5, and then the South America is a 2. So I got both of them to go down to 0, which is going to help us later if we ever want to do something in those regions. Good. That's done. Canada does what it does best. It calms everybody down. Okay. But Canada's not done. That was their joint actions. Now they get to do a unilateral one. So we got to roll. I rolled a 10, which I'm not sure that's good. And they are on the back here. Minus 1, so it becomes a 9 if there's no tension. There is Russian influence in the Eurozone, so it's back to 10 again. And there's no terror groups in CONUS. Russia NATO conflict status value is greater than 1 on the conflict track. I'm checking. Yes, they are at a 2. So this actually becomes an 11. So we're here. Canada is sending troops abroad. Either send forces to reinforce NATO, +1 NATO Russia relative strength on conflict track, and +1 Russian tension, or support U.S. in war, increase pro-U.S. side strength by 2. I will take the increase by 2 because we're doing the Taliban thing. That's very Canadian of them to help us with the Taliban. Totally something I could see them helping us with. So there we go. We got a +2. I actually don't want to add tension with Russia, although that is sort of neat. I like this chart. This is like I said, I like this part of the game. Next. Activate Saudi Arabia using the same procedure as described in 1 above, except for Gulf states, South America. So, what's Gulf states? So, I see. Hold on. Gulf states, Saudi Arabia is what I meant to say. There we go. So we're going to get 2 joint actions, and those 2 joint actions is remove stress. So we're going to remove 4 stress from Saudi Arabia. So 1, 2, 3, 4. There's still 1 tension left on them, but that's what we're going to do. We're getting rid of all the tension with Saudi Arabia, and that was all possible because we had a very close relationship with them. So then we move to the unilateral table for Saudi Arabia, which is here. So I rolled a 1. Ooh. And then it becomes a 2, because we do have a tension. Oh, the tension value. Let's reveal. It is a +1. So that makes it a 2 plus half on the GSG-SA Iran conflict track. It's currently a 2. So now the value is a 3. Now the value is a 3. They're not at war. So we're at a 3. So a 3 pushes us from talks with Iran to dialogue. Decrease their Iran conflict track back by $1. Remove 1 tension counter on both them and Iran. That's excellent. So first thing that happens is they go to 1 on the war thing. This tension counter is removed, so that means we no longer have to replace it with a tension. And then one of the Iran ones gets removed. They have a whole bunch of them, but less is better. Okay, so that was Saudi Arabia and the Gulf states. So after those activations, go to the rogue activation table and determine whether 1 game-created rogue state or Iran or North Korea acts immediately. If there's no game-created rogue state counters on the table, always use the 6+ result on the rogue activation table. So yeah, we're supposed to roll to see if a rogue state activates, but there aren't any. So we're going to just go to 6. North Korea or Iran, whichever has more tensions, and that's definitely Iran, acts. If tied, choose randomly. Roll a d10 and determine their action on the Group A, Iran, or, Group A, Iran table. We did Group A. Did we have an Iran table that triggered? Yeah, we did, because we had the dark blue box. That's right. We don't want a dark blue box. And we rolled a 10, which is a dark blue box. All right, so here we go. 2, 3, 4. That's going to make this 14. 16, because Israel's at war with Hezbollah. And 16. 14 is all the higher it goes. So air missile war versus Israel. They're going to war. And they move up 1 on the nuclear track. And if they ever are on level 5, it's game over. We lose. So, jeez Louise. This moves to a 4. And it says -2 presidential APs. And another Iran influence goes on to this civil war. So now there's 2 Iran influence. All right, they're out of control. Okay. We have war number 3 going on now. This one is with Iran, and they are the aggressor. So let me find them in here. I don't see them in there. That's because they're over here. So Iran is the attacker. We're going to figure out the conflict type. This is probably a stalemate, unless it tells me otherwise. And then Israel's the defender, like so. Regarding Israel and Iran, the relative strength is +1 for Israel, so they will get +1. And what does it tell us? It's an air missile war. So it's this one. It's not air-land. All right, and then I got to go to a chart. It says WM5, I believe. Yeah. So let me find a world chart somewhere. Okay. So coming back to here, for allies, Israel, if it's air and missile, see how it's in parentheses here? It's a 6 instead of an 8. There's my punch board. I have a bunch board with numbers. It's underneath the camera. Okay, so coming back over to here, Israel is a 6. And then if we look at Iran, in parentheses, for air and missile, it's only a 3. And then I just realized something. Israel gets a +1 because of the relative strength. So they're at a 7 and they're at a 3. Okay, that covers that. Now, we come back. We did the rogue action. So we did Iran, and I think Yeah, so if Iran is at war, which it is now, we got to do this extra step. Oh, we don't do this if Iran is at war. We do this instead. I see. And then I think somewhere in here, after rolling for Iran, remove all tension counters and replace with half rounded up. So this is 4. So they're going to get 2. So we made I don't know. The tensions are, that one card is making Iran out of control. Just one card. Now we got to go back to where we started, because we were doing Group D, not Group A. Now we're going to roll a 10 because we're going to do unstable states. So let's do that. I rolled a 3. 1 to 3. Remove unstable state. For Central South Asia. That was the first one. And yes, they have one, so let me get that out of there. And then the next one is for Asia Pacific. They don't have one. And it says if there is no unstable state in the region, skip the rule. So we'll go ahead and skip for that one. So India area doesn't have an unstable state anymore. Okay, that wraps that part up. Now we go to UNX, which is here. And I love that the designer put the tables right in the flip book. So, after the automatic, up here, every time the UN is eligible to act, it will automatically take the following 4 actions listed with a star in the UN action chart below. Also WD3, so it's just trying to help us to see that it's listed in multiple places. So 1, humanitarian aid, attempt in the world region with the highest regional crisis value. Resolve ties randomly. It represents the world body acting together to alleviate suffering and avert crisis. I don't disagree. So we got the China caused Asia and Pacific to have a 3. And I'm looking through. That's the only one with a 3. So that's going to be where it's going to happen. Remember, a 1 to an 8 means that it's going to decrease the regional crisis by 1. So that's good. Those are good. We don't want those happening. Next one is 1 infrastructure aid. Attempt in a world region with the lowest current stability. So right now that is the Middle East by a mile. So to resolve that, roll a d10, 1 to 5. The action is successful and +1 stability to the region. That's a 6. No good. All right. Next up. 1 youth empowerment. Attempt in the lowest stability region that contains a level 2 or 3 terror group. Yeah, that would be the Middle East. Roll a d10. If it's 1 to 5, decrease 1 level 2 or 3 terror group by 1 level. That's a 2. So we'll take this level 3 group and reduce it back to a level 2. I don't know what level 3 does to amp it up. I do know that from our last check to raid them, you can only reduce them by 2 levels if you have a perfect success. So they definitely persist a lot longer. Peace talks in a civil war. Choose 1 civil war in a region with the lowest stability. That's the Middle East. Make a broker. So the broker peace talks, we have to look at WM4. We've looked at this before. Okay, you know for sure we're going to roll a dice. Let's do that first. A 10 is not going to help us. -1 if it's a UN action. So that makes it a 9. That is not true. That's going to make it a 10 again. And that's going to make it an 11. So 10 or more, fighting intensifies. +1 to regional crisis. So the Middle East actually got worse. Thank you, UN. That's about how worthless you are. Then refer to the possible refugee crisis table, WD1. WD1. Where are you, WD1? Page 2. This is another roll. A 1 is what we needed last time. Okay. The region is, of course, the Middle East. So the regional stability is 3 or 4, so it's going to get a +2 because it's a 3. So that becomes a 3 because the region is horrible. Stability is horrible. And then -1 for every close ally, which is -2. So it puts us back to 1. +1 for every civil war. There's 2 of them. So we're back to 3. Then +2 if there's at least one war other than the Civil War, which there is. So that puts us to 5. The final result is 5. So increase level 2 or 1 terror group in that priority by 1 level. And then add an unstable state to the region. All that caused by the UN. Thank you, UN. Thank you for your service. You're doing awesome. UN. So that means that level 2 terror group that they helped us reduce just went right back up to level 3. They did nothing for us. And then an unstable state gets added to the region. The Middle East sucks. Okay. Then we got U.S.-initiated UN actions. After the automatic UN actions, you may choose to perform up to 2 U.S.-initiated ones. If you spend 1 action point and or a goodwill counter to get 1 action, if you perform 2 actions, they must be 2 different ones. You cannot perform the same action twice. All the ways in which the U.S. partners try to promote peace. If you spend 1 AP to get an action, you get a -1 DRM to your roll. If you spend a UN goodwill counter to get an action, flip the UN goodwill counter back to its backside and use that number as DRM for that action. I see, that's where the goodwill counters come in. This will likely give you a better DRM than spending an AP. One reason they are valuable. Yeah, I think we should probably try to use some goodwill counters. Let's see what we can do, though. Regardless of whether you performed any, check your media relations and apply any public approval of benefit or penalty as listed on media relations. So we're going to get a -1. Yes, we're getting a -1. So this is dropping to 42. That thing's been a yo-yo. Okay, so we do have 2 goodwill UN counters. So we can decrease regional crisis, which currently is at 1. Need a 1 to 8. We can try to increase the stability, decrease a terror group by 1 level, place sanctions. I want to sanction Iran, to be honest. Arms control, decrease the missile track. This is actually what we need to do, because Iran's moved up that missile track a lot, and we lose the game if they get to the top. They have 1 more spot to go, and then they win. We lose the game if they move up 1 more time. So, we're going to do C left. Decrease the Iran or North Korea nuke missile track. If successful, decrease the track by 1 box, reversing any tensions listed in the lower box. Then roll D10 again to determine whether Russia or China gain an influence. So we need a 1 to a 5. And I'm going to choose this goodwill counter. This is our DRM, remember? We actually get a -2 to our roll. So I got a 3. That was an easy pass. So the Iranian... See, I don't know if I'm supposed to be applying these every time it goes up. But it goes down, and it says reduce the tensions that it says. So this is +1 tensions. So I can remove one. It says on Iran, Israel, and I haven't been doing that. So I think I might be doing something wrong with that track. I want my presidential actions back, though. So yes, I moved it down to a 3, which was very, very important. And then we got to see who gets to add an influence. I rolled a 10, and that's never good. A 10 is, no influence. So actually, this was the one time I actually wanted to roll high. An 8 or more is no influence, so nobody gets to put influence anywhere. Excellent. So that was one of the actions. I can't do it again, because I'd love to reduce that one more time. It does say I can broker peace in a major war. Broker civil war peace talks. Attempt to end a civil war. I got to go back to that WM4 chart again. De-escalate. Decrease a level 3 or 4 conflict track by 1 level. And remove 2 tensions from each side. I don't think anything's level 3 or 4. Actually, the US-Iran track is. Do I really want to go to war with Iran? Yes, actually. Yes, I do. But I should probably do the right thing and reduce the tensions. It would let me reduce the tensions by 1 level and remove 2 tensions from each side on a success. Removing 2 tensions from Iran would be semi-helpful. But is there something else I can do that's better? I think improving stability in the region would be nice, because the stability is like through the floor. Or to remove the regional crisis. Do I have to do Middle East? I don't think I do. I know I've been focusing so much on the Middle East, I think I can go anywhere. Because it is United Nations. I think the United Nations focused on the Middle East because the stability is the lowest. So, yeah, let's try to go somewhere else and reduce, like for example, Central America has a crisis level of 2. And I think I want to reduce that. So let's try it. Or I could do Eastern Europe. There's a lot of places actually. Let's do Central America. I want to reduce that. I just need a 1 to an 8. Well, actually, no. This is going to give me a nice die roll bonus. I should probably try something that's a little tougher. I can put sanctions on Iran. Let me think about this again. I think I want to end the civil war. One of the Iranian influenced civil wars that's causing issues in the Middle East. So we're going to turn this over. I just get a 1. So I'm going to roll my die. A 5 is way better than the 10s we've been rolling. And it's telling us to go to page 15. So obviously we get a -1. So that 5 becomes a 4. But see, the regional stability makes it a 5, and then this makes it a 6 because it's got Iranian influence. So it's a 6. 5 to 7 is nothing. So we didn't improve anything. It was worth a shot. All right. I think that brings us to the end of that. The UN actions were interesting. They made things worse. So now we get to do 3 domestic actions. This should be pretty straightforward. The domestic actions, of course, there's a lot to do. Our congressional crap is going through the floor. We have no bipartisan cooperation. There's a lot of things to do diplomatically. Not diplomatically, domestically. Actually, we need to reduce crisis levels. We're at level 2. So one of the 3 is I'm going to increase party relations by 1 box, because that's guaranteed. 2 of the 3, we're going to address a domestic crisis. So I have to make a cabinet effectiveness check, D18. Our cabinet is on 4. That is not good. Decrease the cabinet domestic crisis track by 1 box. Plus 1 public approval. So we get -1 if that's the POTUS. That is definitely not the POTUS thing. Is it a focus? POTUS or cabinet focus? We got healthcare reform. Military, social, yeah, none of that's our focus. So this is a -1. DRM from the current box on the LDI track. We're at a 1 on the LDI track. The current box has a 0 on it. So we get a -1, and we would need to roll. Well, because our cabinet is at a 4, we have to roll. Basically, it's a 50-50 roll. Let's go for it. I rolled a 4. So we got lucky, because that turns into a 3, which is enough to reduce the crisis by 1, and that improves our approval by 1. That was huge. We needed to do that. And then let's improve our relations with Congress. I don't think I'm going to spend any AP. I just want to make good things happen. So I rolled a 9, which is horrible. Absolutely horrible. I get to reduce it to an 8 because I'm respected by Congress. And it gets added because it's at a 5. It adds 1, so it's back to a 9. And it says -1 because I bungled my relationship with Congress. So we're back down to 4 again. That's a horrible. There you go. Those are my 3 actions. One of them backfired. These domestic actions are really hard to pull off. Then we draw a chit. Because, you know, not enough bad things have happened. We need more. Here we go. It says, draw 1 crisis card. So we're going to do that. And then we're going to deal with war progress. Now that's going to be interesting to see, because we're finally going to get to the section where all these wars have something happen to them. All right, so we got to draw 1 crisis card. Let me reach across the table. Choose 1 civil war in the map and replace it with ceasefire counter. -1 regional crisis in that region. Decrease 1 terror group in that priority by 1 level. This is really good. I'm going to choose one of those Iran ones because they've been annoying the crap out of me because they keep adding +1 to the die rolls and winning. So we're going to take this and turn it into... there's another token. Civil War ceasefire. I'm just going to stagger it like that to show that there's an Iran token underneath it. Maybe let's do it that way, show there's a +1. So we did that, but more importantly, it also reduced the crisis by 1, which was very good. And it decreased this terror group from a 3 back to a 2. All three things were good. And why doesn't this cascade, I ask? It's a discard. That's all we get. We get the bonus benefit from it once, and that's it. So it goes into the discard now. But I'm very happy. That proves that there are good events buried in that deck. So that brings us to, like I said, the war progress. Now this will be interesting. See how much the flip book helps us versus we have to go to that other table again. So here's a go. For each current war, use the war status sideboard and follow the procedures on WM5 in a world chart to resolve this. For each current civil war or civil war ceasefire, make a D10 roll on the civil war resolution chart below, or it's also WM4. There's two different things. And applying any applicable DRMs. If rolling for a civil war counter, use the results under the civil war column, and then ceasefire would get its own. And then we have some DRMs here. So there's going to be a lot to do. I need to take a break. So I'm going to hit pause here. We're at 1:06. We're almost done with this. I'm still having fun, folks. There's so many things that are like, I'm sure if you're really the president of the United States, things don't go your way. There's people who, they're like, because you're the president of the United States, because you're the United States, they just hate you by default. And so I understand not everything's going to go the way you want it to. And then, you try to strong arm something to force the world to bend to your will. And then you look totalitarian in a way, and that makes more enemies. And then more rogue states pop up. But I think the real lesson to be learned here is that the designer did his homework. And if you're paying attention at home, the United Nations has caused more world turmoil than I did. That's my re-election platform right there. All right. I need to take my break. I'll be right back. Okay. So one of the first things I wanted to address was a question that came up with the nuclear missile track. All those tensions, like there's this text below each box. We are supposed to, as it goes up and down the box, apply each of those effects. And then if it goes down the box, you've got to remove tensions and stuff. Not from the box it came from, but the box that it's going to. So if it says, there's two tensions or whatever, you get to remove those. But it does say you don't get your presidential AP points back. Okay, so now we're going to do the war progress. So we have 3 wars going on. One of them involves the U.S., so let's do that one first. It looks like it's the most complicated one. It says the total U.S. strength from all U.S. units in the war's region. That's the strength for the U.S. side. Plus any carriers in the region, or in CVBG, which is deployment zones whose arrows point to the region. Add the strength of any regional troops counters on the U.S. side. So Marine units have a combat strength of 3 in the war's region. So if we look at the war's region, we don't have any Marine units. So it's a combat strength of 2 if attacking from a carrier group in a CVBG deployment zone, which is not true. We don't have Marines at all. For a naval war, add +4 to the total of carrier plus Marine strength in any but Eastern Europe or Central South Asia. Okay, so what I don't understand is, I guess they have a number written right on them. So Special Ops has a 1, the Air Force has a 3, and Army Light has a 2. So that's a 6 strength that we have there. And then you have an Indian Ocean carrier that has a 2 strength. So that makes it 8. So that gives us 8 strength. But then it gets weird because we also have this stuff. We have this 2, which makes it a 10. And then we have regional UN troops, which is 4 more, so we're at 14. That 8's not part of there. So then they have 4. So 14 divided by 4 is 3 to 1, right? So that's the odds. So we have attacker strength versus defender in a ratio. So we're at 3 to 1. Determine any applicable DRMs to the ensuing war progress roll. I don't know what... It says DRMs none at the bottom here, so I don't know what's applicable. Then it says roll a 10 and apply DRMs and find the combat table, WCT1. Oh, we gotta go find another table. Looks like it's on the very last page. Look at this. End of world charts. That's when the world ends. Look at that. That's like so thematic for when the world ends right there. This is the combat chart. So we're doing a air-ground war combined, which is the brown, right? And the DRMs, I don't think are listed anywhere here. Here they are. Look at this. So if we're doing air-ground DRMs, if the U.S. or U.S. ally is attacking, use the value to the left of the slash. If we're defending, it's the right of the slash. For split DRMs. Okay, I don't know where a split DRM is. Oh, that's these. I see. So, surprise for attacker. I don't think there was a surprise. If it's a U.S. war and the U.S. FNI counter is in the region. That is not true. If U.S., Russia, China is, nope. If U.S. war and there's a heavy counter in the region. There is not. If U.S. war and there's a U.S. Air Force, there is. So we got a -1. If the U.S. or ally attacking, we are. And the total of Russia, China's combined influence counters is 2 or more. It is not. Well, no, total combined is 2. So that means +1. So our -1 and +1 cancel each other out. So we get no bonus to our DRM for this combat. So we are at 3 to 1. Oh, I'm sorry. Got a little too ahead of myself. So we're at 3 to 1 odds. And I don't understand how to read this. So, oh, here, 3 to 1. So, and then we got to roll a die, see what happens. I see. So both get 1 loss if I roll an 8 or more. And then if it's a double star, change combined air-ground war to guerrilla war. So we don't want to roll high, it looks like. So no bonuses. We're at 3 to 1. I roll a 6. And it puts us right in the middle. So 1 left and 1 defender loss. And then a single star. If one side has not won, make peace. End war. Both sides spent. Ignore on initial war progress roll. I don't know what both sides spent means, but yeah. So we move 1 left and a defender, 1 defender loss. So I gotta here we go. Apply results. Let's read what it says. I'm assuming the left-right is the conflict status. So if we move to the left, the attacker forces are winning, right? So we're winning the war. And then the loss, I'm assuming, is they have a 4, and I would reduce it to a 3. By decreasing net side strength by the loss number. Don't reduce any U.S. strength. The game assumes the U.S. replaces losses. Instead, when a U.S. loss, you lose approval. And then make a relations and media check. Yeah, that's even worse. And then asterisk results ends the war with both sides spent and ready for peace. Ignore on initial, that's what this is, initial war progress roll. Oh, that's immediately after the war starts. We were supposed to do this when the war started. So my apologies. See the additional notes on how to handle wins, losses. Okay, so this war was started before we took office. So the one we're resolving now, we're fine. The war is going to end because both sides are spent and ready for peace. However, for the other two wars, I'm going to have to do this progression a first time because when the war started, we had to do it. And then I'm going to have to do it again for now. And so I apologize for that. I didn't realize that that was the case here, but that's what I get for assuming. So they lose a value. I don't know why this matters. If the war's ending, why does it matter that they're losing a value? That's the part. So after you apply results, +1 to regional crisis in the war's region. If U.S. forces were involved, also place 1 footprint counter. See the additional notes on how to handle wins, losses. So I guess we still do this. So the crisis goes up to 3. A military footprint would come out and go there. And then, like I said, we got this 4 for their strength would be reduced to a 3. That's for the Taliban. I don't know if it matters, but it told me to do it. If one side wins, is in either the attacking forces win or defending forces win. It is not. It's in the winning. What to do when the war ends section. It could be an overwhelming victory. If neither side wins, the war continues. So we're going to have to resolve all this with those other two wars. But okay, what to do when a war ends? For game-created rogue state losses, for U.S. wins, U.S. ally wins, for make peace results. That's where we are, right here. We're in the make peace results. Sorry for the... When the warring side makes peace because of an asterisk result, the war ends and any conflict track is reset to the status of peace. I don't see a peace anywhere. But yeah, if this is a U.S. war, you may choose not to accept peace and continue the war. If so, continue had there been no peace result. But -2 to public approval and -1 to world opinion of the U.S. In all other cases, check the conflict status at war's end. If the conflict status is stalemate, no further effect. If it was the U.S. or U.S. aligned side is winning, +1 public approval. If an ally is involved, move their conflict track governing. Non-U.S. side is winning. The U.S. ally is winning. So we can get +1 public approval if an ally is involved, or no. We would get +1. Here's what confuses me. the war ends and any conflict track is reset to the status 3 space. So it's not peace, but 3, right? 3 is stalemate. Then it says if the conflict is stalemate. Well, you just told me to put it on the stalemate space. So how could it ever be anything else? But technically the conflict status is that we're winning, so this should happen. So that makes no sense at all. I guess what this is trying to say is resolve this, and then once this is done, move it to 3. But if the war ends, I mean, you're not setting it to anything. There is no war anymore. So I think what my decision is here is I'm winning the war. And if we go one more round, I'm probably going to trounce this guy. And if we get a U.S. wins, we get all kinds of stuff that goes our way, including legacy points. But because I got this stupid situation, I'm going to cause the world to think less of us. So screw the world. The world's going to think less of us. We're going to drop to 4. We're going to do -2 public approval. We're down to 40. And yeah, and then in all other cases, check conflict status at war's end. So we're good. We don't have to end the war because we were the U.S. And yes, we reduced them down to 3, and that means we're going to have even better odds next time around. So we're going to trounce them. Okay, next. Realizing now that I was supposed to progress the war when I started these next 2 wars. So we have here the Hezbollah attacking Israel in a ground war, and it's 3-10 attacker. So we got to apply the chart here. And this is a really bizarre one because 3-10 means 3-10 means it's a 1-to-1 ratio or less, which is no bueno for the attacker. And I'm assuming it's always from the perspective of the attacker. Yes, the attacker's strength in a ratio. So it's like 1-to-3. So it's horrible, their ratio. So let's roll for them. A high number is even better for, this is Israel here. 9, perfect. So they rolled horrible. They're up here. So this thing's going to move 1 to the right and 2 attacker loss and then a star. So the war is actually already over before we even get to this phase. This moves 1 to the right, and so the defending forces are winning, and they lose 2 strength. So this 3 becomes a 1. And yes, now we come back and have to resolve their chart. So they get if one side is not 1, they have to make peace, right? They had the asterisk. They're forced to make peace. Right here. 2 attacker loss with a single star. Ignore on initial progress roll, which is what that was. So remember, we were doing the initial progress roll, so we ignore that. So now we're to this phase. Now, so if we come back over here, we have to apply the regional impact of war. +1 crisis in the war's regions. U.S. forces were not involved. So the Middle East actually would have gotten worse, right? And then neither side won. If the U.S. is involved, no. Yeah, there was only a bunch of stuff if the U.S. was involved. Okay, so we're fully caught up on the when the war was initially declared. So we ignore the results with the war ending, because that does not happen when the war initially declared. So the Hezbollah had a horrible loss. Now their results are even worse than 1-1. And so we're going to roll again for them. I rolled an 8, which is very bad. And the 8 is going to cause them to move 1 to the right, and the attacker loses 2. So here, if you look to this, they're going to move 1 to the right. The defending forces win. Losing 2, they don't even have strength left. So Israel's going to get an outright win on this. And it does say, to force a peace, but let's go back now. And you got to look at the apply results. So I see. The lighter blue boxes are used when it's an air war. Apply any loss results to the non-U.S. side by increasing its strength. An asterisk results in the end of the war. Ignore all asterisks when making initial war progress roll. So +1 regional crisis again. This is going to be unavoidable. We're going to get a massive crisis thing going on here. The U.S. forces were not involved. So right here, if the conflict status counter is in either the attacking forces or defending forces win, the war is over. There was somewhere in here where I read that if the troops' strength is reduced to 0 or below, the war is over as well, which is both of those things happened here. So if one side wins, if the move result is greater than the number needed, that's not the case here. Immediately reduce the rogue strait by 2 levels, +1 legacy point. Skip the for game created, and go directly to the applicable for country wins section below and apply those results. So we don't have an overwhelming. We're okay there. So now we go to what to do when a war ends. So U.S. ally wins. Let's put that. Let's go to that one. Move allies conflict track back to the 2 space. So this one's for Hezbollah, which I would consider to be a neighbor. They're already, I guess I was supposed to move it down to the 4. So they're back to the 2 space. I never moved it. Adjust relative track by 1 in the allies' favor. So Israel and the neighbors, Israel just got even stronger. Place a +1 AP counter on the ally. So the ally gets an extra action point next time around, which that'll be pretty handy. So Israel, no longer at war, or War 2 is gone. They get a +1 AP. War 2 is done. +1 public approval. If the ally relationship was already very close, +1 legacy point. We're up to 8. Otherwise, improve it by 1 level. So that is it. Now, if this was a make peace results, it would have been similar. It would have been similar. Okay, so that's that. Now we got to move to the Iran-Israel one. This is an air-only war. And it's a little different. Remember, we have these DRMs, which could have changed things. So let me make sure. See, Israel wasn't ever the attacker. Israel was the defender, so they would have gotten a -1 to a war roll. Or I'm sorry, a +1 if Israel was the defender. That would have added +1, which is bad for the attacker. And they would have added a -1 because there was 2 influence markers there. So it would have been exactly what we rolled. So we're fine. Okay, so now we're in an air or air missile one. And I just want to show you, like, the chart's a little different. So surprise for attacker. I did not denote there was a surprise or a no surprise. If it's a U.S. war, no. Israel's at war. And so it's either a -2 or +2. And in this case, Israel is the defender. So that's going to be a +2. And if U.S. or ally attacking, defending, and Russia or China has a base. They have no base. So there's going to be a +2 added to the roll, which is going to be Israel's favor. And then we got to look at the odds. So it's a 3 and 7. So it's less than 1 odds again. Israel has better odds. Israel's not the attacker. So it's that 1-to-1 chart again. So we're going to use the worst scenario here. And we have to use the blue results. And remember, they get a +2 to their roll. So we rolled a 4 for them. And so a 4 would normally be here, but we're adding 2 to make it 6. So it goes here. And right here, 1 to the right and no loss. So for an air war, it's saying that they have to move down to there and see little diagonal arrows. So that's going to move diagonally before you get to a win or a loss. So it just moves down there. And you know that because it says air missile war. Okay, that was for when the war was initially started. So no changes there. However, because of our chart, the war progress is causing regional crisis to occur. So I am not going to move it all the way to a major crisis because we spent times, we had actions where we could have moved it down, and we're artificially trying to retcon a bad implementation of the rules. So I'm going to stop it there at 3. We're not going to do a major crisis. It's possible we would have gotten a major crisis. I don't know, because I could have done more actions to reduce the regional crisis levels. It only took a 1 to 8 to reduce it. So we could have maybe done something to impact that in a more positive way. All right, but we are going to apply the results again. And so we know that there's a +2 in Israel's favor. And this time it's a 5, which becomes a 7. And I think that same chart is going to trigger. And it's, it becomes a 7. And it's 1 to the right and no loss. He needed an 8 or more before he starts taking losses. But 1 to the right means that Israel is winning that conflict. But it's not quite resolved. And then we chose as America to stay in because 9/11 and you suck. So we're going to take care of that. So now we got to deal with the civil wars. And this, I will allow the major crisis to occur. And it might actually, because there's 2 civil wars going on in the Middle East. The Middle East is just a hotbed of crisis problems right now. I don't think there's avoiding a major crisis there. So we have 1 ceasefire, we have 1 civil war, and we got to go through all of them. I'm looking, there's a civil war in Africa. There's 1 here in Africa. I see there's 2 of them in the Middle East. There's one up there in Eastern Europe. Yeah. So lots of good times here to be had. Oh, and there is a rogue state. Look at this. I covered it up. We did have a rogue state on the board. So my apologies. That's the Taliban. They're a rogue state. So my apologies there. There was a previous decision that if there was a rogue state on the board, something would have happened, and we didn't do that. Okay. This game does a really good job of punishing specific regions. The Middle East is just... Anyways, let's do the Civil War in Africa. Just because I'm tired of the Middle East. We're going to do a Civil War in Africa. The DRMs, there's no UN action. There's no peacekeepers. Regional stability is less than 5, absolutely. So it's going to get a +1 to whatever I roll. I rolled a 5, so that makes it a 6. And the fighting continues in Africa. No further effect. So now we're going to go ahead and do the one in Eastern Europe. Stability there is 5, which that does not get a +1. I rolled a 7. Fighting continues, no further effect. So now we're going to do the one in the Middle East. That's a 7. Gets a +1. Makes it an 8. Fighting intensifies. Increase the crisis by $1. So we just hit a major crisis. And nothing else really happens. But we got to stop there and resolve a WD1. Good thing it's not a WD40. So this is a regional major crisis table. Let's just roll. We got a 10, which means it's horrible. The stability is a +2, which makes it a 12 because stability is a 3. -2 for every very close, so 12. So we're back to 10. +1 per civil war in a region, that's 11. +2 if there's at least one other war, that's 13. And there's no rogue state. All right, so we're at 13. That means we're at the bottom box here. Decrease region stability and increase regional crisis by 1 box. This is already, how can I increase? Well, hold on. The counter goes back to, so -2 public approval and goes back to the 2 box. So that's what's happening. So this goes back to the 2, but actually increases right back up to 3 again. And a trending anti-US counter. Always a good time. Put one of those on there. And draw and resolve a new terror card from the terror deck. And possible refugee crisis. So the terror deck is what? There's a terrorism deck. Is that what they meant? Okay, that's really poor, designer. You have a terrorism deck, not a terror deck. And I understand you might think that's the same. That's not the same. I'm going to assume it's a terrorism deck. So it says draw and resolve a new terror card. Okay, so here's what we drew. +1 regional crisis and -1 stability in Central America. Stability drops to 3. Increase the 2 highest level terror groups in Central America by 1 level each. So this becomes a 2, and then this 2 becomes a 3. If there's now a level 3 or 4 terror group, governments ask for U.S. military intervention. If If you choose to help, spend 2 APs to deploy 1 Intel advisor, 1 Special Ops, and 1 USAF into Central America. Now, place a trending pro-US counter in Central America and make 2 immediate free intel gathering attempts there. Then place a US military footprint counter. If you choose not to help, -1 regional alignment in Central America. Yeah, I will help them. So I'm going to spend 2 APs, which means I'm really low. I'm down to 2. I still got 2 more things to do. I thought there was something that gave me AP points. I can't remember what that was. Well, it might have been an event. So I spent 2 APs. So Intel, Special Ops, and U.S. Air Force. So here's an Intel. We have 2 of them there. Special Ops, 2 of them, and Air Force, 1. So we got a whole bunch of stuff there. And it puts a trending pro-US marker in the region, which is good. These are our neighbors. We got to help them. Make 2 immediate free intel gathering attempts there. I don't know where the intel gathering table is. I'm assuming that's a world chart thing. Yep, there it is, page 19. We still got to do refugee crisis. So let's do the refugee crisis before I continue. 5. Stability check for Eurozone. There was no roll. So stability check is Eurozone, so I rolled a 5. The stability is 6, so nothing happens. We pass. So +1 to the Eurozone crisis. So they do gain a crisis, though, because of the refugees. Okay, so that's taken care of. So now we got to go to page 19. Intel gathering. You're allowed to make 2 different intel attempts in any world region in order to identify and indicate terror groups. Oh, I see. It's just a terror group check. So modify the die roll by -1 if there's a U.S. intel unit in the region, and -1 if we have focus. So we do get a -1 because we have an intel there. And we get to do 2 rolls. So let's go. First roll is a 2. And so 1 to 4 is we are successful. Move the target from the map to the gathering box if it's not already there, or move it 1 to the right. So we could take a level 3 group and put it up there in gathering. Then I'm going to try to move the other one up there as well. I rolled a 1, so both of them are up in the gathering section. That's what that more or less did. And we are done. It goes into the discard pile. So, okay, that was not fun. And we're not done. We're not done. We got to resolve the war, the Civil War. I am so confused. It's not even funny. So that was resolving this Civil War here. Now we got to do the ceasefire. And so let's roll. I rolled a 3. It does say +1 if there's an Iranian influence marker. So that does become a 4. Regional stability is less than 5, so that becomes a 5. So we move to this row. Fragile peace, no change. Because the stability is low, these civil wars, there's nothing we can do to stop them. I mean, you got to roll like a perfect 1, and even then you're adding 2 to it, and it becomes a 3. I mean, this is like permanent peace, and then like bam, right here, it's moving up. There's nothing that can be done. Okay. So that brings us to any 4 diplomatic and or military actions. Now, we have a lot to do. We got military actions to reduce some of these crisis levels. So, for example, I want to get that 3 reduced and then the 3 in the Central America reduced. So, as much as I want to do diplomatic, well, this is diplomatic and military, so we're not doing anything with home. And that's fine. So we're going to go ahead and try to reduce. We can de-escalate a conflict. No. Decrease tensions, maybe. Summit with China, maybe. Improve a region's alignment, trade agreements. A crisis relief. Here we go. Roll a d10. If I roll a 1, it decreases by 2. A 2 to a 6 decreases by 1. So I get to reduce it by the diplomatic rating of my Secretary of State, which is a 1. And the stability is not higher than 6 in either of them. So we're going to do this twice now. So we're saying, if I roll a 1, so 2 to a 6 reduces it by 1, and I get to do a -1. So let's do the Middle East first. A 7 doesn't get the job done. Let's do the Central America. That's a 1, so that means I get to reduce it by 2. Okay, so that's 2 of our actions. We have 4 total. I'm going to do Middle East again. 7 minus 1 is 6, and that does pull it off. Just barely. Reduce it by 1. That was very necessary. So now we have one last action. I was going to move some of the military out of Central America, because having all those military troops in Central America doesn't do me anything. So what the action would be is move or deploy military forces. We can move non-carrier forces, 1 air or ground unit, and a total of 2. May move between CONUS and any ally box, etc. I don't know, maybe we don't want to do that right now, because since I failed that check, I don't know if I want to do that at the moment. If we do military professionals to treat disease, that may work. I can make a cyber attack, but I don't want to do that. I'm thinking I want to do diplomatic again. So what do we got going on here? We can make a trade agreement. Crisis relief we did. Can impose sanctions on Iran. We can decrease tensions, de-escalate a conflict, or broker offer peace. Screw everybody. They're all losing. They can unconditional surrender, punks. So with the diplomatic actions, I mean, the only thing I can think of is I actually do think we want to do the military, use the military professionals. So we're going to go ahead and roll cost 1 action. We're doing it in the Middle East. I rolled a 1. So I can place a trending pro-U.S. counter in the region and receive a new goodwill counter, which is perfect because we need one of those. And remove 1 footprint from the region. And if there's none, well, we definitely have a footprint. So we do that. We get rid of the negative trend. It seems like we could have done so much more, but removing the military footprint is a good plan. And yes, our military rating would have caused us to get a -1, and the Russian influence counter would have given us a +1, so they would have canceled out. So we are done with our 4 actions. I thought for sure we were going to do way better than that. So now we got US SOE impact. So we got reduced, remember, to 5, which is recovery. Perform the number of economic assistance acts allowed by the SOE as shown on the box to the left of the counter on the game board. For each economic assistance act you are allowed, you may perform either of the following. So we're at 5, so we get to do 1. Improve an ally's relationship by 1 level, or place a trending pro-US counter in one of the 8 world regions. So we're allowed to do this once. This is the economic assistance thing I was reading about, and I was wondering, how do I get to do that? It's part of your economy track. Update the game state as noted in the box to the right of the counter. So here we would get -1 public approval, -1 AP, and 1 Congress. Ooh, I'm glad we're here. I guess it's because we're aiding countries while we're hurting ourselves. Makes total sense. Okay, so we get 1 action. We can either improve an ally relationship by 1 level or place a trending pro-US counter in one of 8 world regions. There's only 1 ally on the board we don't have improved, and that's India. And they're in the region we're currently at war. So I'm actually going to, although the pro-US thing would be really nice to do, I'm actually going to make India very close because that's a presidential only action. So we're going to put that there because we haven't pulled the group that includes India yet. So we've used all of our markers. We have very close relationships with all the allies we can have close relationships with because, you know, Jeff the diplomat. All right, so that is it. We are now back to activation phase 3. I am down to just 2 APs, which somebody warned me not to do that, and I did it anyways. So that's my fault. I don't know how I moved down so quickly. I thought I was here when we started. So, like, what did I do to spend all those APs? I don't remember. Or did I bump it with my camera? Because I even gave myself an AP because somebody gave me a correction. I mean, I know I spent a few. I don't remember spending 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of them. You know what? I lost them because of the dang nuclear track, I bet. Okay. Anyways, I'll accept it for what it is. Some of my mistakes have gone in my way. Some of my mistakes, I made the game harder. So you are going to make mistakes on your first playthrough, and I for sure am. I hope you don't think they're too major. The biggest one being when the nuclear track moved. I was supposed to apply all those things. I wish the player aids would have told me that. All it said was, I think, apply the action points, which is what I did. I did it literally what it said. I ignored everything else. So anyways, so now with the flip book, we are at the end of the flip book, but we technically have to go backwards to redo phase 3, which is here. Activate phase 1 and 3. So I'm going to do that on the next video. Thanks for watching. Stay awesome.